So, like a few of my shows lately, this one also involves Major League ball players who share the same name, like the three Jack Warners and the two Don Lepperts. The shared name I will be talking about today is Bob Thorpe. The Bob I will not be talking about was a Boston Braves outfielder in the early 50s and is 10 years older than Robert Joseph Thorpe. Goes by Bob, pitcher, MLB debut 1955, born June 12, 1935. Passed away March 17th, 1960. If you watch the show, then you'll know, usually when I give a player's date of birth, it's a good thing. For this episode, that's not really the case. If you're good in basic math, you'll realize Bob died at a very young age. We have a few shows coming up about players who had untimely deaths. This will not become a theme, nor will it be a playlist. I told you about Vic Lombardi dying in hospital after a successful heart surgery, and how Travis Williams died from alcohol at the age of 45. Both untimely deaths in their own way. But Bob Thorpe's death really was untimely, and like most who die young, is a very sad story. Not only was he recently married with his whole life ahead of him, but it was the way he died, a brutal, violent death. And if it wasn't for bone chips in his elbow ending his pitching career prematurely, Bob would not have been an apprentice in training on the day he died. He would have been at spring training. Gets back to timing and being in the right place at the right time. Or just like that, you lose a half century of life and your widow is left wondering what might have been. It was a workplace accident that killed Bob Thorpe, an accident everybody wished didn't happen. But sometimes, even with proper training, things can go wrong in the blink of an eye and lives are changed forever. Standing 6'1", weighing 170 pounds, Bob was named the Outstanding High School Athlete of Southern California for 1952, and his San Diego High School baseball team won the Southern California State Championship. He then pitched his American Legion Junior team to a second-place finish in the national finals and was named Player of the Year. Bob signed with the Cubs in 1953, and they sent him up to Northern California to pitch with the Stockton Ports, Class C of the California League, and in his first pro season had a 16-8 record. And from the start, Bob was looked upon as a pitcher and not just another would-be star on the rise teenage hurler. But without a real fastball, he would have to keep hitters off balance, using his off-speed pitches, a great changeup, to go along with his wicked curveball that dropped off the table and was delivered with what some say was pinpoint accuracy. Bob stayed in Stockton for 1954, and the 19-year-old righty tied a league record with 28 wins, which was the most in all of organized baseball that season. He started 33 games, finishing all but one, losing only 4, pitching 300 innings, and led the league with a 2.28 ERA. For his effort that season, Bob Thorpe was named California League's Most Valuable Player of 1954. The 2 seasons he was with Stockton Ports, Bob won 44 of the 56 games he pitched. This would earn him a call-up from the Cubs, making a bit of history in the process as the first Cub in franchise history to be promoted from Class C straight to the majors. The teenage sensation of the California League was about to take the next step in his pitching career. Early on in the 1955 MLB season, Bob would get his first look at the big league batters in front of nearly 20,000 fans at Cubs Wrigley Field, where he'd face crosstown rivals, the Chicago White Sox. Bob lasted only 2 innings, striking out 4 but walking 5, giving up 4 runs on 4 hits. His first look at the big show, and it was not a good look. He would get 2 more chances at redemption, but they were in mop-up situations, and he was optioned in May to the Des Moines Bruins, where he was 10-10, and now developing some undisclosed arm issues. 1956 was spent in the Pacific Coast League with the LA Angels, the Cubs' top affiliate, and even with a pitching record of 14-22, Bob Thorpe was taken in the 1957 Rule 5 draft by the Pittsburgh Pirates. But his sore arm only got worse, leading to a surgery to remove bone chips from his elbow, and spent 1958 on the disabled list. 1959 would be an unsuccessful comeback year, pitching in 3 games of Class A ball in the Sally League before retiring. Bob Thorpe has one baseball card from his playing days, a 1955 Old Homestead Franks team set that features him in his Bruins uniform and is supposedly scarce. Our dad was around 12 when he visited Arizona for the 1956 MLB spring training camp and was able to fill quite a few pages in his autograph book with players from the 4 teams that were there: the Orioles, the Cubs, the Indians, and the New York Giants. This was the camp Dad went up to the now late great Willie Mays and got his autograph. He saw Willie play quite a few times in the mid to late 50s and early 60s and said Willie Mays was the greatest all-around baseball player I ever saw. That's what my pop said. I've shown the 1956 Orioles spring training scorecard that lists the team's rosters. Bob is listed as a Cub and is one of the rookies who made the cut and started the season with the team. Some of these players didn't make the cut and would end up in the minors, with Dad sometimes getting their signature again in the Pacific Coast League or at other spring training camps over the years. Bob is listed in 2 of the 3 1956 Seals scorebooks from Dad's collection, and they're from different LA Angels games from when they visited the San Francisco Seals during the Angels' 1956 PCL championship run. One of the scorebooks is partially filled in with Bob as the Angels starter. Just doesn't happen to be this one. Pop has signatures from over half that team, with Steve Bilko being one of the main ones. He was a PCL superstar who was the MVP of the PCL 3 straight years and had back-to-back seasons with 50-plus home runs. Here's an Angels scorecard when they played the Seals from 1956 that Bob Thorpe was not listed on. Lots of good stories from that 56 Angels team. There's a book written about it called The Bilko Athletic Club. I've done a few stories on those players, Gene Mauch and Jack Warner, but there's a lot of work and research involved on those stories and players. Bob's autograph in the thumbnail. It's on the cover of one of the 56 Seals scorebooks that Bob was nice enough to come over and sign for my dad. Your 1956 San Francisco Seals? I've done shows on Jim Mahoney, Eli Gerba, Ted Boesfield, Ted Wills. Oh, there's a Jerry Casal. Unfortunately, I did not bring the scorecard that had Mr. Thorpe's listed in it. On the day of March 17th, 1960, instead of being at a big league spring training camp throwing the ball around with the fellas preparing for the upcoming season, Bob Thorpe is working with his father-in-law as an apprentice electrician. It's a job. You got to have one, especially if you're married. When working in close quarters around high-power 2400-volt cables, you got to know what to do, but more importantly, you got to know what not to do. While working on one of those cables, a surge hit Bob's palm, making him jump back. His elbow grounded against a metal transformer box behind him, and he was instantly electrocuted. The force of that electrical current was so great, they said it burned his fingerprints into the metal awl that he was holding in his hand. Bob Thorpe was 24. As tragic as Bob's death was, you have to feel for his father-in-law, who had to go back to work, reliving that day, knowing that in a split second, his daughter's life was changed forever. It reminded me of what retired pitcher Bubba Church told a teenage Joe Namath. A sore arm can change the direction of your career. The way I see it, if Bob Thorpe's pitching arm had not given out on him, instead of holding a metal awl in his hand on that March 17th, he would have been holding a baseball. On that day,